Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me okay? Is this close enough? My voice, I had neck surgery a couple years ago and lost some of my vocal cords. So if you see me straining, that's typically what it is. But Tim, thank you for that introduction. And um, Brian, thanks for having me here today and the rest of your staff that's been very hospitable. Um, I'm gonna, kind of give you my background a little bit. He talked to you a little bit about my Air Force career. I'd spent 20 years as a procurement officer, did multiple deployments in Afghanistan, Iraq, Croatia. So, if you want to talk war stories, we could talk some of that, but I'm going to try to keep it light today. Hopefully, you guys will gain something. I'm going to encourage you guys as I'm talking. I'd love for you guys to ask questions. Don't be ashamed to come. I mean, I'll talk to you after, but I'd really like this to be somewhat interactive. If you see something that doesn't make sense, or just ask me about it. Um, I wanted to start just by kind of telling my story. This is my family. I mean, of course, you can see the ugly mug up here and the gray hair. That's my wife, Becky. The far left is my oldest son. Far right is my youngest son. The far left actually played football at West Virginia for Neil Brown, who's now the new head coach at UNT. So there's a little bit of a family connection there. Second son to my wife's left there on the slide. He's in the nuclear program in the Navy. He's a nuclear operator. Then my farthest son, my youngest, is 22 at University of Cincinnati. He's in business school. But this picture was taken at our company's 25th anniversary gala, which Tim was there, which was a hell of a blowout party, um, open bar, a lot of crazy stuff. But um, we're celebrating a company that's now been around 29 years. I've not been at the helm. I bought the company in 2014. So what, 11, 12 years ago, but the company's been around for quite a while. And it's, when I got there, we had 8 employees after I retired from the Air Force. And now we're 100 employees and a network of doctors, nurse practitioners, and PAs that are about 1,100 across the country in 44 states. So, with that, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what we do. We have two different sides of the business. On the left is what we call acquisition services, which for you guys, if that's the government's term for procurement, financial management, logistics, all that combined. But we have a whole side of our business that does procurement support for federal and state customers. I mean, what's really happened is the states, federal government don't have the personnel, the experience to handle big buys, strategic buys. Um, Before I go too much further, I think we have a lot of supply chain folks in the room today. Are there any other disciplines that folks that I might be able to kind of at least hit on some points, or any accounting folks, couple in the house? Accounting's going to come up. Um, I think I heard maybe, is there any HR? No, one way in the back. Management, anything else? Any procurement folks? We got one procurement here in the back. All right. Well, as Tim said, I'm a former procurement person, but I don't want to limit it to just a procurement talk, although I'd love to convert all of you to join the procurement program because I am biased. I do think it's the best profession in the supply chain management arena. Um, it's to me, from what I've seen, it's the least vulnerable to AI, but that's my opinion. But I think you'll see some of that bear out. So the left side of the business is a parent company that's Monterey. We recently set up a second, what's called a DBA, if you're familiar with that. It's a subsidiary doing business as owned by Monterey, but it's called Monterey Medical. And that's really been our growth area. We do disability exams around the country for veterans. Are there any military veterans in the room? When you got out of the military, did you do your compensation and pension exam with the VA? Did you do that when you got out of the military? You're still in. Okay. So we're one of the companies. Last year we did 120,000 appointments for veterans in 44 states. We have a network of 1,100 docs that do these exams for anybody who gets out of the military, anybody who, they may do 2 years, or that, like me and Tim, retired from the military. They're still required by law to get that compensation and pension exam. Have you completed yours? Great, because most folks like to procrastinate. Don't procrastinate. Um, but we do the disability exams. We have 6 brick and mortar medical clinics. I think they're listed on the next slide, but we have a clinic in Dayton, Ohio, which is where our home office is, Akron, Ohio, Fort Wayne, Indiana, Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we're opening up a clinic in Batavia, New York, here in the next 60 days. We do medical records as well. That's all to support that doctor network so that they can perform the exams on the veterans, because they've got, say, 7 appointments a day. We've got a whole team that's not only recruiting doctors, but also getting those medical records. A lot of times with the help of AI, we're using AI to streamline med records, because some medical records are 1,000 pages long. We can't have a doctor trying to review 1,000 pages of records. We need to go straight to the medical condition that needs to be assessed. Any questions on that? So both, although one's procurement, our procurement focus on the left-hand side is very medical focused. We do a lot of work with the Department of Health and Human Services. So they're somewhat, even though they seem very different, I always tell people this is a very diverse portfolio. There's a lot of, synergy as well, because it's medical on the right side. Most of our procurement support is medical as well. And quite frankly, that's where the money is. If you look at any state, Texas included, about 70% of the state budget is with health and human services, things like Medicaid, state hospitals. People tend to think it's transportation, but it's really medical. So we use both of those and play them together very well. The procurement side, this is our largest client. In 2020, when COVID hit us, I got a call from an old friend who was a state procurement director in North Carolina. She says, "Mike, we don't have enough people that work in procurement at the state level to set up COVID testing stations, to set up eventually, to get the vaccines to folks." So we stepped in with 2 people in 2000 working for the state of North Carolina remotely, 100% remote. Today we have 36 people working in all these different divisions. This is also health and human services, things like Department or Division of Social Services, Division of Child and Family Welfare, Division of Mental Health, Division of Child Development and Early Education. So we do a lot of that work. We do about $12 million a year in revenue just with the state of North Carolina. Any questions on that? That's the procurement side. On the medical side, I've kind of hit on a lot of this. This is where we manage that nationwide provider network, the doctors, DOs, MDs, nurse practitioners, and physician assistants. We have the clinics, 5 today. We'll have 6 here in 2 months. We do medical records, and we also do staff augmentation. So if a hospital needs a oncologist or some specialty, a pediatrician, we can go recruit those resources and then staff them at our negotiated hourly rates with those hospitals. We do that for the state of New York as well, and a lot for the VA. Any questions on that? Tim called this a small business. I like to say, yeah, I want to stay small because it benefits us. I don't want to compete with United Healthcare, but I'm pretty proud of the fact that we're doing about, just on the medical side, we're doing $44 million this past year. For an old dog like me from South Mississippi, that's not too bad. When you put both sides of the company together, it's I guess I've been very lucky, but I'm very fortunate as well. But this is what we did in 2025. We had about 10% growth from 2024. We expect another 10% growth here in 2026. But this is that medical disability exam work for the VA. Any questions? So forget all that. I mean, you could ask questions about that. I just wanted you to give you a feel for what my background is, what I do. Today is more about trying to give you an idea. I know some of you are probably thinking, I just want to get a job. I want to graduate and I want a job. And I'll go work in a warehouse or go work in a company as an analyst. What I want to talk to you about today is, down the line, at some point, you may have the opportunity to start your own business. And for any of us who went to a business school, I would think there's got to be some kind of an entrepreneurial desire that maybe I can do something on my own and build something, build wealth that's beyond just me. Do you guys agree with that? Are there people in here that some of you probably already have some side hustles that you may be doing something, with a friend? But what I want to talk to you about is how do you sustain that business once you identified that opportunity? Questions before we get started? So how do we avoid the statistic? Because the reality is 50% of all companies that start fail within the first 5 years. 70% fail within 10 years. Why is that? Well, I mean, it's not easy to start a business, but I think what I've seen is that most entrepreneurs jump into a business with ideas like, oh, I can do this. That's not how you want to build the business. You want to jump in based on an opportunity. And let me give you the example of that opportunity, and it's built off a relationship. 6, 7 years ago, Monterey, our company, all we did was the procurement support. I ran into a friend that I went to the Air Force Academy with, and at a conference in Atlanta, I'm going up an escalator, and he yells at me. My nickname, everybody calls me Nip. He's like, Nip, I need help. He was by this time he's a CEO of a large business in California. He sees me and he says, hey, I need to talk to you. And so he pulls me, comes back down the escalator. We end up going and sitting down. He says, hey, I'm in a jam. I need a small business that can do medical stuff. I said, I don't know any shit about medical. I never done medical in my life. I'm a procurement weenie. Sorry, Tim. So anyway, 6 months later, that company was, at that time, they were owned by Lockheed Martin. But they came in, they did an audit of our company. They taught us how to recruit doctors. They taught us how to set up clinics, basically mentored us. And that was 7, 8 years ago. And now we're doing $45 million a year. That was an opportunity. That wasn't my idea. I had no clue. I mean, as a procurement person, I had bought medical supplies, equipment, services, but no medical background. But we were agile enough, nimble enough to pivot and go chase that. And that's 70% of our company now. So that was that opportunity. And I would encourage you, don't fall in love with your idea, because you probably have some great ideas, but chase that opportunity. Does that make sense? Question? Did not.
Big, like at the time, like it was doing pretty well already. So like to go into the medical field, like how did you be like, okay, yeah, this is how we're putting all the effort?
Based on a trust and a relationship, because I knew that guy. I knew he was not going to steer me wrong. He said, hey, don't worry, I'll help you learn this. We're going to take the time to teach your folks, come out to California, spend 2 weeks, walk around our company, Look at how we have set up our call center, how we have our recruiting staff, how we schedule appointments for these veterans. I mean, it took time. It was not overnight. I mean, we didn't start doing 44 million a year. I think the first year we did maybe 500,000, but every year we've 4 and 5x that, and it's grown to that next point. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay. So today I want to talk about 10 tips for success. And these are just kind of my thoughts on what have I learned after 20 years in the Air Force did not teach me about business. I mean, honestly, as an Air Force officer, you don't know anything about an income statement or a balance sheet. We have no clue. We're given a budget. As a commander, we're given a budget and we're expected to execute every penny of that. If not, the next year we don't get the same budget. So something goes, some requirement goes unfilled because we didn't spend all the money we get. Well, as a company, that's not a good business model, right? We've got to be a good steward trying to look for ways to be more efficient as a company. So this is kind of what I've learned. And I'm not going to give you this. We're going to go through slides for each of these, but these are my 10 points. All I ask is maybe you take home 1 or 2 of these today. I can't pick which one I think is the most important, but I'll leave that up to you as we discuss. Please stop me, ask any questions as we go through these 10. First one, listen to your client. What does that mean? This is about, don't walk into a potential client and drive your agenda. What's important to you, they probably don't care about. They have certain pain points that they need to solve. They have problems that they need help with. And if they trust you and you have a relationship, listen to them. Let them drive where they want to go, because that's our revenue stream, right? That's our client. Listen to them. And when I say stop talking, I'm not good at that. I was kind of a, mouth of the South kind of guy. I had to learn to really shut up and just look and listen. That will help you as whatever client, whatever you're selling, whether it's product or services, listen to your client. Listen for ideas, not just the words. And lastly, when they talk about building a company or starting a company, I always talk about a business plan or a marketing plan. Don't fall in love with that, because it's really going to come down to the client. What do they want? And that's usually, I mean, I'm telling you, every contract we've grown, we walked in with 1 or 2 people. And when maybe initially they wanted a procurement person for a staff augmentation because they didn't have a good procurement person. 6 months later, they're asking us for 2 HR people or 2 accountants, because by then we've put quality people on site or supporting them that they trust us now. And they're like, man, if I can staff a procurement person, I can staff an HR professional or a statistician for that matter, an engineer. That's, and that's because that's where the client had needs. Let them drive that in time and it'll work out. Questions? Don't procrastinate. I mean, it sounds simple, but, establish a business pipeline. And what I mean by that is pick out strategic targets that, hey, this is what I want to go after. If I'm selling a product, pick your channels, pick the potential where that product's going to sell. From the services side, we see opportunities to bid on things all the time. But I need to figure out, this costs money to go after write proposals and to compete especially in the federal government, state. I'm sure it's no different in the commercial world, but it costs money to go after opportunities. Make sure you have a very established methodology for how you figure out what's your go, no go decision points. Any questions on that? reputation and experience are critical. This was a lesson I had to learn. I had this vision of grandeur. I'm like, oh, well, I'm a military officer and, I got a, Air Force Academy degree. I got a PhD. I can just go sell to Amazon. I can go sell to Google. The real reality is Google don't give a shit about me. I don't have that expertise. I've never worked in the commercial world. So it was kind of a wake up call for me as I went and talked to some of these companies. They were very polite because here I'm a veteran. I go in and I sit down and talk to them. They listened to me. I thought I had a great pitch, but that's not where my experience is. And I had to kind of go back to, okay, what world did I grow up in? I grew up in the military. So I had to go back to my relationships on the military, to figure out, okay, what potential clients can I work with? So it was either going to be, Air Force folks like me, or I did meet people in other services, and I also knew people in other government agencies. So that's something I want to pass on to you too. Wherever your experience lies, if you grow up in a warehousing inventory after, post graduation here, if you start out with let's say a big logistics firm, you know, if you decide suddenly you want to be an IT person, that's not an easy transition. Your experience is in logistics. That's just an example. Just remember that. Leverage your experience. Um, Leveraging your team. I was telling Brian and Tim, I'm getting old enough now that really don't have to work much anymore, which is nice. But the only reason that is because we've hired such, good high quality people. I just get the hell out of their way. Give them the tools they need, get out of their way. They're going to be a lot more successful. I mean, that's kind of my weak definition of a CEO. Give your people the resources and tools they need and get the hell out of their way. Um, they'll come to you if they need something, but I don't necessarily have to manage a whole lot. Um, Measure your performance, and this is something we do. Everybody hates surveys, right? But we survey our clients twice a year, and it gives them the opportunity. Sometimes it's paper survey, but a lot of times it's just a phone call where we call the client and say, hey, how's this person that we staffed that's supporting you? How's it working out? Are they doing well? Are there any problems? Um, let them score us so we can make adjustments. Like any other feedback, it's, good, bad, or ugly. Everybody wants feedback, and we can use that feedback to make improvements. Um, Lastly, here, be a problem solver. If nothing else, I mean, that's what most clients need help with. I mean, no one likes a big science project, but clients have a science project they're going to need help with. It may not be something you thought, but if they trust you, once you have that relationship, it's a great opportunity to take on tough problems. Any questions? If I'm going along too fast, you guys let me know. This is for my accounting folks. This was a wake up call for me. First, first month after my partner and I bought this company, Monterey, I picked up some, you know, accounting statements, financial statements for non-accounting. I had taken a couple accounting classes to get into an MBA program back in the day, but I don't think I've really ever learned anything. Um, I would encourage you guys. I know it's probably not the sexiest classes in the world, but get your butt in one or two accounting classes. You, it'll help you in your personal life if it doesn't help you when you finally do, or if you decide to start a business. Um, Knowing these concepts of the importance of direct versus indirect cost. I mean, in our world, we want as much direct cost because that's what we can bill the client for. Um, but you're going to have indirects, you're going to have overhead. You got to understand that. The second, the fringe pools. I mean, as a company owner, you don't ever think about what it's like to pay taxes and Social Security and the Medicare, the things that you have to pay for all those employees. Um, Knowing those true costs can really make or break the company. Um, so, you know, the last thing I say, and this is kind of where I was at the first year or so, is I was depending upon our accountants, our CPAs, and we have a bookkeeper as well to tell me what these balance sheet and income statement, like what it really means. Um, but once I learned and I was able to have a conversation or at least somewhat intelligent, it has really helped me manage those, you know, how to control some costs, whereas before I knew nothing about it. So um, please consider that if you've still got some courses you haven't filled between now and graduation, it will not hurt you to learn more about accounting. Would my accountants in the back agree with me there? I mean, no one's making fun of you because just trust me. Um, Partnering with other firms. I mean, I never thought about how important it would be to partner with other firms until I started doing business. And you're always going to have like, one company's doing this, one's doing another. Where a lot of people go wrong here, though, and I mean, I did this myself, made this mistake. I was always wanting to partner with other procurement firms that specialize in procurement. Well, we already have that capability, so why would I partner with them? What I needed to do was partner with someone who specializes in HR or accounting or logistics. Um, but it takes a while to learn that. I'm putting this out to you so down the road maybe you'll remember that. But you're going to need partners to be successful, whether you're selling products, you're going to have, you know, a supply chain that everybody works together, but figure out, don't pull in companies that do exactly what you do. It's a not going to work. Um, don't partner with people because if you win, if we do, or you think you're going to get some work from them down the road. Don't partner for those reasons. Partner because there's a clear and compelling need that together we're a good fit, working as a team of two or three or how many players you got. Questions? Remaining visible with the client. This is all about out of sight, out of mind. Never get so comfortable that, oh, I saw them like 6 months ago. I don't necessarily need to go visit them. I tell our team, I mean, everybody in our company, it's 100 employees. We send every one of them to sales training. Um, I didn't know, my expectation is not that every one of them selling, but I need them to be comfortable talking to clients because that relationship that they establish out in the field is going to bring more new business than us responding to an RFP or a solicitation and trying to win a new contract. Um, so I tell them, check in with your contract, your client, check in with them. Doesn't have to be every day, but call them up once a week and say, how'd it go this week? Is there anything we didn't do that you expected? Give them that opportunity to, you know, to engage with these clients. Um, in the government contract world, we have usually what you have is a 1 year base contract, and then you have option years. We always feel like, oh, we won this 5 year contract, but you don't want to assume the government's going to exercise that option at year two or at year three or year four. You got to stay lockstep with them, communicate with them. And I'm sure in the commercial world, it works very similarly. Um, if I haven't talked to you in a while, you're also a lot easier for me to say, well, I've got this new buddy that I could work with. I can let this company go. Don't give them that opportunity. Stay attached at the hip with your client. My last thing, I just one of my one-liners, don't be a quarter horse in a mile race. Look at long-term success here. You're not going to win this in 1 month. You got to approach this as a long-term relationship with a client. Questions? Um, Talk to your peers regularly. Um, this can apply all, to where you're at today. You should all have a peer network group that, maybe it's a study group, you meet once a week. Even as a CEO, for myself, I will tell you, I'm in a group called Vistage International, and it's essentially just a we have an Ohio group of 15 CEOs that get together once a month in person, and we share stories, we share problems. Um, the reality is, at some point in your career, you're going to get to a point where you just you can't go talk to your subordinates about your your problems. So you need peers that you can relate to. And it's amazing how many times, I may have an HR issue with an employee at work, and although I may have not faced it while I was in the military as a commander, I'm able to ask someone else and they're, hey, I've dealt with that before. You know, whether it's, you know, I've been able to help folks with suicide in the workplace because it happened under my, as a commander, I experienced that in the Air Force. Unfortunately, that happens. And I've been able to help people, other companies, they never thought they'd have someone commit suicide in the workplace. But this peer group is super important. I pick up the phone once a week. I typically try to check in with at least one of them. We all get together once a month in person, but once a week I call one of them and say, "How's it going? Um, do you have any new contracts? Do you have any new issues?" Just because it's nice to have that relationship network. Um, the sooner you establish that, 10 years from now, you may have people in this room that you can call up and say, they may be able to help you or you can help them. Don't, don't pass up that opportunity to start building your networks now. And I'm not just saying it's got a friends, it's professional relationship. Um, there's a connection for where people go to school. Leverage that. Questions? Um, this is probably a little bit foreign. This is understanding P-win. Um, Tim, I'm gonna put you on the spot. What does P-win mean to you?
Well, I mean, I've done work with mines before on the sales side. So my career, I was a buyer, right? I was on the buy side, but I mean, I've had opportunities to be on the sell side. So, and many of us, faculty members operate as independent consultants. Very often as faculty members, we compete for winning grants for UNT and for money in school. So we are on the sell side, find ourselves on the sell side. Right? We're chasing opportunities. So P-win is exactly what you see up there. It's the probability of being successful. And I don't know. It's got to calculate this because you've only got so many hours, in the day. You got stuff. So you want to be good at kind of gauging whether you're on success of finding some business is you're going to find all of that sales effort.
Thanks, Tim. Um, exactly what he said is probably probability of winning. I always tell folks, we have a matrix that we use. Typically, we're looking for something around a 30 to 40% probability. If we're going to spend money on bid and proposal costs, because a lot of hours go, we sometimes spend 200 hours putting together a proposal. That's not short. Um, but really, some of the takeaway here is, and this is more really government contracts, but I'm sure it applies in the commercial world as well. If you're waiting until a solicitation or an opportunity hits the street in the form of a RFP or RFQ, request for proposal, request for a quote, you're too late. You've already missed the boat. Um, you've got to be having those discussions with that client a year before the solicitation drops. They need to know who you are. If you don't know that client, they're not going to do business with you. I'm sorry. It's you'll hit 1 in 100 shots like that, but only if it's a low price shootout. And in our service, professional services world, I don't want to be a low cost. I don't want to be Walmart. I am not a low cost provider. The margins aren't worth it for me to go chase that kind of work. So, but if you establish those relationships, you can help actually help them define the requirement that fits your capabilities or whatever product or service you might be providing. Um, but that's huge in terms of get in there early, use your relationship. Don't wait until something hits the street. This is an HR thing that I've learned, and I got to tell you, I've hired some bad people in my life. My secretary and my division leaders all remind me of this daily. They say I've hired people I met in a bar, which is true, which I thought was going to be great, but it didn't necessarily work out. Good people, they just didn't work. But this is something I've learned over time, which is, hire slowly, fire quickly. And I know we're all naturally impatient. A lot of times we had to hire people in Washington, D.C. It's hard to find good people there. And we get so excited. It's like, oh, we found this, you know, statistician, and their resume looked great and they interviewed good. And we're like, oh, we got to hire him. We got to get him on site. We got days to get them there. 2 weeks later, they don't even show up for work. They hadn't had a regular job in 2 years. They were listing some temp staffing thing that looked like a regular job, and we just didn't do our homework. If we had taken the time maybe to do, I mean, I don't want to have 4 rounds of interviews, but if we had done a second round of interviews, we might have found out this was not going to be the best candidate. On the flip side of that is really firing quickly. I mean, we all have a natural inclination to take care of people. No one likes to fire anyone. I mean, I still dread it anytime we've got to let somebody go, even if they really deserve it. But I'll tell you, if you procrastinate on this, if you drag your feet, you're going to have this opportunity long before owning a company or running a company. You're going to be managers. Hopefully, within 5 years, you've got direct reports, if not sooner. And you're going to have to make this decision. If you drag your feet and your gut tells you that this person's not working out and they're not a good fit with the rest of your team, and you wait, you're going to let 6 months pass you by, and the rest of your team's going to question your credibility as a manager. They're going to look at you and say they should have gotten rid of this person earlier. Don't wait. That's an important point. And I don't mean to be mean here. It's just, that's what you get paid for, to be a leader. Questions on that? Yeah.
Like a direct ratio of how many people you've had to hire and fire, or is that like 2%?
Our turnover rate's really good. I mean, maybe 6%. So we over 12 years, if I hired 100 people, I had 6 bad. Because one or two might have left on their own. The other ones were just bad hires by me. Or I can blame somebody else, and that's always better. But it's going to happen. We can't be perfect in this. This is tough business. And they don't teach us, and they don't teach us as business majors, or at least I didn't get it. They never taught me about HR. I never thought of some of the issues I'd be dealing with workers' comp and, truancy issues and, you name it. They're going to be there. You're going to have to learn this, whether you learn it in a textbook or whether you learn it on the fly like I did. Fortunately, the military exposed me to a lot of this. Last principle is really just learning when to say no. And I mean, I was not very good at this. I'm still not great at it, but it really does help to, don't just say yes to everybody because it's the easy thing to do, because you're going to get so overwhelmed. The things you need to be taken care of are not taken care of. And I don't forget, someone told me this tip, and now I respond when someone says, "Hey, Mike, will you partner with us on this new contract? I need to use your medical past performance. Can you send me a couple of write-ups and we'll team up and go after this new contract?" And my response now is, "Can I get back to you on that? Let me think about it for a while." Or I'll put it back on them because they're asking me to do work. Well, I might already have other things on my plate. I'll say, "Why don't you draft that up, that proposal, and send it back to me, and I'll take a look at it." That creates some work on their part. Then it's not as simple, ask on their behalf. So, um, but Tim and I were talking earlier about work-life balance. You know, I'm gonna use his words. Don't go into your first job interview and tell them about work-life balance. You're gonna have to grind at some point. Um, don't, but when you get down the road and you're getting old and tired like me, you need some work-life balance. You need to learn to say no. Sooner you learn how to say it's the better. Um, any questions on that? No.
Your job, right? So we all say yes to a lot of things, even if it's a lot of work. And so how do you kind of, for people that are just getting into the industry or whatever job they're getting into, how do you say no without looking like you don't want to work as hard as the other person who says yes to everything? And then you're the one, like, it could make you look worse, but also better if you choose certain things better.
Rather than saying no to you, or let's say it's in a job interview, or if this is your first supervisor, um, I would prefer that if you think it's too much, that you're already saturated, oversaturated, that you come up with an alternative or say, "Hey, I can't do that. I mean, right now I've got a full load, but I can get to that next week, or I can do this. Can you extend my deadline?" Just negotiate what that looks like rather than promise, "Oh yeah, I can get this done in 24 hours," knowing you've got six other things on your plate. Um, but I mean, that's a great question. Listen, I mean, I was that second lieutenant hungry when I got to my first duty assignment, and I thought I was going to save the world. I mean, I didn't know shit from Shinola. Um, once I figured that out, I was fine. Once you figure out what you don't know, then you're good. But be honest with that supervisor. I mean, communicate. Um, that's really the key to success is that, you know, having either the relationship with clients or having that good relationship with your bosses. I mean, don't be afraid to talk to them. Don't be afraid to ask difficult questions. I mean, those are just more, you know, life lessons than running a company. I'd much rather be asked 9,000 questions than none at all, because then I don't even know if you care about learning. Um, right. I don't know if well, I didn't know if, you guys have any other questions. I'm all, you got one?
How do you like personally build any relationships with like high performance?
High performing clients. Um, I don't know if I'd call them high performing. I'd call them highly demanding. There's a lot of those, but I would rather than be high demand, or at least demanding a lot of my time, than none of it, because I'm probably going to lose that contract if they're not communicating or asking a lot of my people. Um, I'll take that any day, and we'll grow that into more business with that client because we're going to deliver. What do I look for?
Yeah.
Um, I I look for folks that I think can think on their feet. So in a typical interview for us, I mean, we do consulting work, and um, most of it I'd call it's folks with 5 years plus experience, sometimes 20. but I want to give them a problem and see how they think on their feet. You know, sometimes we'll do something as simple as, you know, you live in a town, you live in a town of 500,000 people. Tell me how you're going to figure out how many barbers you need to service that whole town. I don't know if you've ever heard that question before, but I get to hear people's, walk through the problem and what their assumptions are. Like, oh, well, 50% of the population's male, so I'm really only servicing 250,000 people. And most males get a haircut once a month. So they're doing their math and I get to hear how they think. And that critical thinking is important, especially in the services world. Not that you don't have to do that even in the manufacturing or product world. But I look for folks that can also have a conversation. Um, I tell my boys all the time, don't just rely on email. Don't rely on a virtual meeting with your clients. I mean, my son works business development for an aerospace company, and he's 27. Um, he's on the road this week. Because I tell him all the time, hey, if your company's going to pay for it, get out there and beat the streets. Shake some hands, get to know these folks. That's how you're going to build something. Um, I don't know if that answers your question, but just be yourself. I mean, I tell you, I mean, I see some great resumes and I see some that's like, okay, this person did not talk to anyone before they put this resume together. Like misspelling. I mean, if I see that, it's the kiss of death. Like run it through spell check, use Grammarly or something. But I see that all the time. And these are college grads, Ivy League grads. I'm thinking, okay, how does this happen anymore? Maybe I'm old fashioned, but take the time to make it right. I'll tell you, I'm not, you'll get the advice, tailor your resume to the position. If the company is shallow enough to use like just some kind of algorithm to run through resumes and search only on the responsibilities, I mean, it's probably not a company I want to go work for. I don't want you guys going to work for that company either. Um, I mean, you'll know when it's a good fit when you sit down with the right HR staff or interview panel. You may have to do 4 or 5, you may have to do 10, but don't jump at the first one if it doesn't feel right. Any questions along those lines? Yeah. Fine.
Like the least vulnerable to AI. I was just wondering like why you thought.
Why do I think that? Um, well, I read a study. It's not a positive thing. Probably shouldn't tell you guys this, but they're predicting that 50% of the white collar entry level jobs are going to be eliminated in the next 3 years by AI. I hate that stat. I hope it's not true, but the way AI is advancing every day, I see my employees are using it, and I'm in awe of what it does for me. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have used Gamma to build a presentation, but I mean, it used to take me, 10, 15 hours to build slides. I was able to, put with the help of a better AI person than me, but this was a 30-minute project to put that together using Gamma. I mean, you tell it, I want to build a slide with the bar charts or a Venn diagram with these 3 things. Boom, there it is. I used to draw the circle in PowerPoint manually. That was painful. But a lot of the data analysis that some of the career fields do can be done by AI. In procurement, there's still a lot of subjectivity. When you're evaluating suppliers, it's not typically price alone. So it's not just that data point. You really have to do some deep level. You may have to call someone on the phone and actually do a reference check like you might give for a job interview. I'm going to admit I'm pretty biased, but I do think procurement folks are already understaffed. Federal government, we just lost 25% of our workforce because they took the early out that the new administration offered. They're in a bad shape right now. AI will give them a chance to eliminate some of the, tedious tasks that aren't that complicated. But there's so many levels of approval and workflows on the procurement side that AI can't replace that. I mean, when money's involved, there's more touch points. And I'll tell you, I mean, 20 years ago, procurement were kind of the stepchildren of most companies. That's changed. I mean, if you look at the salaries of procurement folks, um, it's pretty staggering. Our average salary for our employee 5 to 10 years in is probably 160,000 a year. Some are making 300,000 a year, and they're not running. This is not Walmart. This is not Targets of the world. This is just a company of 100. But that's what it takes to pay for that kind of experience. We tried to use AI to write proposals. It's not good. And I can't speak to how people are using AI for accounting or other logistics, supply chain. But procurement's got a long way to go before they, abandon the human element. Thanks. Good question.
Piggyback on that answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, AI and realm negotiations. However, I'll tell you that business deals are done between people. Big business deals and big money come down to people. And you're not gonna, if you're gonna hire a supplier and you've got so much money and it's gotta be done right, you're not gonna hand them that money for somebody to build and negotiate by AI. You're gonna lay eyes on it, right? You're gonna manage that. If it goes wrong, the supplier is not the right supplier. It's like hiring an employee, hire the wrong employee. Same thing with the supplier, right? You've got to manage that risk, which means you got to involve in the selection. So contracts are at the business level, they're done between people, which means that's relational. So that's why I think procurement's going to last, especially during function, because same thing on the flip side with sales. B2B sales will be an enduring function because those two people have to build that trust that they can rely on each other to be successful in a business partnership. That's my answer for it. Thanks, Brian.
I think we have to wrap it up.
Yep.
Listen, I want to thank you guys for your attention. Mike is a